Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Good evening. Hope you're all well. Give you a minute to get settled and get in. Grab a cuppa, get comfy. I hope everyone's well. So for anyone that is new here, oh, hang on, let me just for anyone that's new here, welcome to Ask Becky. This is a free drop-in session where we can all have a chat, talk about our week, talk about our lessons, talk about tests if we've got them coming up. Any advice that we can give you, that everyone else can give you, we are there to help you. So for anyone that's not been before, you will always find the information for joining these sessions in the Empathetic Instructor Training Group on Facebook. So tonight we have a special guest. I think the guys here that have been here regularly from the beginning know that we do specials every now and then. And our special guest this evening is Scott Robinson. How are you today, Scott?
I'm pretty good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, fabulous, thank you. I'll tell you all of you guys about my day in a minute. So Scott, this is your first time on Ask Becky, which is really exciting for me because for anyone that doesn't know Scott very well before tonight, Scott and I host a podcast called A Cuppa with a Driving Instructor, which is a lot of fun. We tend to pull funny faces and have a lot of fun with that, but also talk about some serious stuff. So yeah, thank you for joining us tonight, Scott. Tell us, for anyone that doesn't know you as of yet, tell us a little bit about you.
I was a PDI, just like many of you. I'm an ADI. I've been for a little while now. I work with lots of different PDIs and ADIs that want to develop themselves. Really inspired by coaching techniques and really seeing people change and try something new. Yeah, that's pretty much me.
Amazing. So how long do you think you've been doing? So you said you've been an ADI for a little while. How long has ADI been there? And then what about like the kind of the coaching and helping PDIs and stuff? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I guess I'm 10 years new now. But I don't think there's been a year where I haven't been a different instructor or a trainer. Yeah, and I think it took me possibly up to my 6th year to really be sold on what coaching is and what it looks like and the benefits to it. Kind of doing the do, but not really believing in it. And yeah, and now I do. So yeah, really enjoy it.
And you run a successful driving school. You help PDIs, but you also do motorbikes. I'm going to say do motorbikes because I know nothing about the motorcycle training and instructing and stuff, but you do stuff with that, right?
Yeah. So the motorcycle stuff is quite new, something that I'm trying to sink my teeth into. Enjoy that. What was the point you made before? Oh, the driving school. Yeah, you said successful, but actually I think I've got successful people in the school that make it.
That's a good way of putting it. I like that, successful people. Amazing. So for anybody here tonight who has any questions, has any thoughts about their week, maybe they've had a rubbish lesson, maybe they've had a great lesson they want to share, if you've got a test coming up, if you need any advice with anything, you can pop your question in the chat, or you can raise your little Zoom hand, or just unmute and let us know that you...
The answer is you don't. What's this? Call it a resume.
This back mom? A lead can deal mission. I was here.
Everyone's frozen for me. I'm going to keep
the power rescue.
Are we back? Did it freeze for everyone like
Or they couldn't bring in the choppers because
Hi.
What'd you use, a stealth shoe?
Steve's iPhone is talking to us.
There we go. I've just muted Steve. It just froze for me. I'm hoping everyone can still hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. Well, we've had in the past 24 hours, we've had 3 power cuts here. I don't know what's going on in the area, so fingers crossed we all stay there. So we have had one question sent in from someone anonymously, which is always welcome to happen. We'll come to that shortly. Paul, hi Paul, you have raised your hand. You are more than welcome to chat and talk to us. Hey.
Hi, so I'm new here. I've been a PDI for just about 2 months, since early January. I was actually put on to you by my trainer. I won't embarrass him by giving his name, but he recommended I join your your community. I've got my part 3 in just under a month now, so my first part 3. I've done quite a lot of, well, I feel like I've done quite a lot of lessons. I just counted it earlier, about 77 lessons I've done so far in the last 2 months. So I've done quite a lot. But I guess one thing I did want to ask, since is I've got that obviously there's loads of different people with loads of different styles, loads of different abilities. I've got one particular one. He's not stupid. He's a clever guy, right? But he just is not learning. I've done 6 lessons with him, and he's still struggling to catch the very basics of clutch control, steering, observations. It just doesn't seem to. I mean, it's really. I don't know where I can go with him. Well, my trainer said to me, well, maybe he should try automatic. But I just wonder whether that feel like I'm just giving up on him too soon, But after 6 lessons, I would have expected more than this.
Okay. Brilliant question. Thank you for asking that. Scott, do you want to go for this one?
Yeah, more than happy to. Hi, Paul. Nice to meet you. First of all, where are you? Where is that? I want to be there.
Bury St Edmunds.
Behind you.
Okay. Oh, this is the lake. This is Grasmere.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The last thing that you said before you handed over to us, you spoke about your expectations.
Yeah, I guess I would have expected him to have been further along by now. That's all. So most of my other students are.
So right. So your expectations comparing up against other people. With that in mind now, could you change that thought process so it's more specific to him?
Yeah, I mean, so listen, what I'm more concerned about is the lack of progress. It's not so much that, I'm just wondering if what I can do to actually, I am wondering what I can do to actually make a difference there.
Okay. What's his expectations? You don't have to answer this.
Yeah, I mean,
what does his timeline look like?
He's pretty relaxed.
Yeah, that might tell you a bit of a story there, Paul. It might be worth having a conversation and removing those other people that you work with from your head. You've now got, okay, you're 72 hours in with your group of learner drivers. And all of a sudden we've got this person that, hang on, you don't fit the mold to what I usually do. So great opportunity for you to think, right, looking at your skill as an instructor, adapting, being client-centered, could I change something that actually caters to him more specifically? Because some of us need a little bit more time in practice. And I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but it's fair to say that we get in our rhythm and we do the do. Anything out of that, there's a problem, and we'll pass them on. And by the sounds of it, you don't want to do that.
No.
Yeah. So consider your goal setting on what are your goals for your lesson? How involved is your learner in that goal setting? What do they want to achieve by the end of it? And then mark their progress on what you set as the goal. So if it is clutch control and gears, changing from 1 to 2 back to 1, and they don't achieve that, then make the goal smaller. Start making his goals more achievable. Happy with that?
Yeah, okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
If you want to fire back, Paul, feel free.
No, that's all right. No, I mean, so yeah, I mean, it's a good tip. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I just have to say, I think you're right. I think part of the problem is he doesn't feel that engaged. What I've noticed, and again, I struggle to get through this, is about if he starts to yawn halfway through the lesson, and I say to him, well, are you bored? Is everything okay? He said, no, I'm just like that. I yawn all the time. Okay.
Interesting there, Paul. That's really good as well, is that your interpretation of a yawn is different to his as well.
Yeah.
So things like this, it's maybe just dig a little bit deeper into his thought process.
Yeah.
I did a training session with my instructors last year about making lessons fun. Now, the word fun can mean very different things to different people. But if we can get him engaged and doing things that he wants to do, and you're obviously the trainer in the environment making it safe, maybe he wants to try a different way of doing things. And let him come up with the ideas, and you just keep it safe.
Okay. All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you,
Let
Paul.
us know how you got on, Paul.
Okay, thanks.
I echo everything Scott said, definitely. And, you know, also one thing to remember, especially as a PDI, the pupils that you get that you find are maybe slightly more difficult, you're going to have to think outside the box a little bit. They're the ones that are going to make you a really good instructor, because you're going to have to think a bit differently about how to get through to this one, how to help this one, and what's going to motivate them and what's going to work for them. And you'll learn so many different ways of being able to get through to them, that when you next get a pupil who shows similar you know, aspects, you're like, let's see if this will work with them. And of course it might not, they might need something different as well. And all these things then build up into your instructor toolbox, that you will be like, you know, when you get a pupil, you're like, I can help you because I've got 1,000 things I can help you with. How are you feeling for your part 3? Feeling ready?
Well, I kind of. I just sort of like, I was a little bit sort of set back because I had my second Czech lesson last week, sort of with because you know we get 3. I'm learning with the AA, and we get 3 sort of lessons, in-car lessons with the.
You've muted yourself there, Paul.
You're muted, Paul.
Yeah, sorry, I just pressed the space bar. I think that mutes it. So yeah, and he just sort of said he quoted this thing, said not many people passed on their first time. It's a pretty low pass rate first time. I'm thinking, okay, great, that really makes me feel good. So I don't know whether he was trying to lower my expectations or whether he was saying something.
I think he's possibly just being realistic with you. I remember when I was a PDI and I heard that, and for me that provided a level of comfort for me, because I kind of felt, well, if I do fail, I'm not abnormal for failing, if that kind of made sense. It provided a bit of comfort for me. But on the other hand, I can completely understand how a PDI can go, well, I don't want to hear that. That's nonsense. I want to know that I'm going to smash it first time. So I guess what you can control is the things that you can control. So coming on sessions like this, asking questions, getting involved, use the group. The group is fantastic. Ask. There's 1,000 questions a day if you really want to, and you will only ever get support in there. So you're doing all the right stuff to help you keep going, which is amazing.
Yeah,
If you've
Paul,
got any more questions throughout this, just let us know. Oh, go on, Scott.
yeah, just with the hearing that sort of thing, it sounds like maybe a bit of a roller coaster of emotions and thoughts when you hear things like this. But that's coming from somebody with other experiences as well. You know, and I think if you're getting constructive feedback and you're putting that into practice along with your home study as well, and you're replicating that time after time in your lessons, I think you're going to know, you're going to feel somewhat comfortable. There's other factors, human behavior, like, you know, you're going to get brain fog, a little bit of nerves, depending on how much you want it. And these are all just normal things, and it's navigating them. So if you've got a process when you receive that information from your trainer that, okay, most people fail first time, how did it make you feel? And just work out that process so you can apply that same successful technique to the other emotions you're going to feel on the lead up to it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, you see, I feel fairly comfortable because, you know, I've done quite a lot of lessons now, and most of my students are really progressing well, and they most of them say they're very happy with me. You know, well, when I say most of them, all of them will say, no one said they're not. So I feel comfortable in that sense. It's just that sort of like, you just think, well, you know, maybe I'm still doing something wrong, you know.
Well, that you've made an interesting point, Paul, because if we, and I don't want to put a dampener on this, but learners will learn regardless of us.
Yeah.
You know, they will, if we pop them in a field with a car, by the end of the day, they're probably driving the car around. Yeah. So ask yourself the question, and you don't have a trainer in the car with you all the time. Your learner does. Yeah. So ask yourself the question, is it safe, and are they learning faster than if I popped them in the field? Yeah.
That's a good way to think about it.
Looking,
John's put a comment in the chat as well, saying everyone's different. Some people pick it up and some are a little slower. So it could be as well that you've just kind of met your first pupil that's you know, different to what you've had so far, and maybe they're just getting it a little bit slower. You never know. But yeah, absolutely, just get to know him a little bit more, see what's going to work for him. So thank you so much, Paul. If you've got anything else to ask during this, just let us know. Joanne, you've asked if you can ask a question. Of course you can. Fire away.
I have a student, and when she sees a hazard, she said, "Oh, hello," and then when she's seen other hazards, it was hello, 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 3 all in a row. So from that, I thought, okay, how can I use that to my advantage with other students? So I decided to play a game called Joe, I see. So whenever the students would see something, they say, Joe, I see. And I'd say, what do you see? What are you going to do about it? So am I able to use that in my part 3 test, or would I specifically have to say, what is the hazard ahead? What are you going to do about it?
So,
Really good question. Go for it, Scott. Really good question. Just to add to it quickly before Scott gives you his perspective, I have a pupil that when she sees something, she goes, "Oh, sir." So it's very similar.
Yeah,
Go on.
lovely.
that's really funny. That's the first time I've heard somebody else say this, which is really nice. I think it sounds like you're completely aware of what that phrase and term means, so you've got agreed terminology there. There's an
Right.
element of commentary driving, and I think vocalizing what your learner's doing can be really helpful for you, less surprises. And if it's working, great. When you're separating the part 3 test to your lesson, if you like, which I'm not a big fan of, because if you're doing the lessons, it's going to transfer and you're just going to deliver a normal lesson on your part 3. But ask yourself the question, are you aware of the timing of things? So is it appropriate and is there time for you to have that exchange, or does it need to be sooner? How early is that happening? And is it creating instances where there's not time for a response and you've had to deal with something, or are they dealing with it themselves?
Yeah, I find a mixture actually with my students. You know, some of them will spot it, but it'll be a bit late. And I think to myself, do I jump in quickly and say, what is the hazard there, which I have done a few times. And then
Yeah.
I've got other students who spot it early enough for us to have that discussion where nothing else is happening. Because if something else is happening, we can't deal with that discussion.
Well, I guess that the problem we potentially have there is by asking something that's quite open. I think Dan's mic's open, sorry.
Nope, we're okay. We're all good.
Yeah, I guess we need to decide whether, if we're asking something so open and spot the hazard, are you wanting them to spot what you're spotting, or are you wanting them to talk about what they're seeing and responding to? And I think that can be when there's a bit of a conflict of, I want you to see what I'm seeing, and I'm not too interested in what you're seeing. So I would say be careful with that. If they're speaking freely with enough time for you to discuss that, and they're at that level where you feel it's safe to do that, then fine. What you don't want to be finding yourself doing is enabling conversation, commentary, and then it's skipping along and we're firefighting and trying to put fires out. So actually the commentaries then become a problem.
Got it. Yeah, great explanation. Yeah, I'll take that one on board as well. So yeah, it's knowing when and where and getting it spot on for the part 3 and for the rest of the teaching, really.
Yeah, if you're wanting to introduce that, Joanne, to your sessions, and just make sure there's agreed parameters. So if you think this person's going to benefit from either a commentary, vocalizing, spotting hazards, maybe playing a sign reading game, things like this, just make sure it's spoken about and that it's agreed on what it's going to look like. And if that comes in the form of a demonstration so they can see it happening first, then I think that's fair, and you're both fully aware of what's going on.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Yeah, so make them aware of where I'm going to use it. Appreciate and how it works. Thank you ever so much, Scott.
No problems.
Joanne. So we're going to come to our anonymous question that we got sent in, if that's okay. Feel free, if anybody here has any more questions or has anything to mention, just let me know in the comments. So this question was sent in, and it starts, my question today is based around my own self-doubts. Both of my son's girlfriends have started to learn to drive at the same time. I'm teaching one and a colleague of mine is teaching the other. After 2 lessons, we have worked on the biting point, setting off smoothly, using the brake pedal, the timing of the clutch down when braking, so that we get a smooth outcome, steering, where, when, and why to look when setting off. That's after 2 lessons. In 1 hour, my colleague had covered second gear, turns, use of mirrors with the other son, with the other son's girlfriend. When I heard this, I was full of self-doubt and felt that I wasn't working fast enough. Why am I not doing that soon? Why am I not doing those things that soon? Am I not offering value for money? I know everyone learns at different rates, but within 2 hours of learning to drive, none of my learners have ever got that far that fast. I prefer to work on the basic skills to death.
Yeah.
So, two sons' girlfriends. One is being taught by one instructor, and they've done brake pedal, setting off smoothly, biting point, timing of the clutch, when, where, and why to look when setting off. That's after 2 lessons. In 1 hour with another instructor, second gear, turns, use of mirrors. What do you reckon?
It's funny because I've had this happen a couple of times over my career. It's unusual because normally you would teach sort of both siblings, right? The family would sort of buy from you and they'd both go with you, but it does happen. But I think we can possibly link this to Paul's question, because whose expectations are we considering here? You've got the instructors who's asked the question on where they think their learner should be at and where they're hearing that their other learner is. And then we've got this possible sibling rivalry of I'm at this stage and you're at that stage. And I guess if I look at myself, my syllabus, and I use that term loosely, is I perhaps don't really look too much at parking maneuvers till we can, control the car and have it under good control. And then, they could then, their friend, their sibling has done it on the first couple of lessons. But I say ask yourself the question is, to what caliber, to what level are they doing that? You don't know how much support they're having with those elements. It could be that you're learning where you've spent more time working on foundation skills and you've developed them to a stage where they're much more independent and they're actually not having support, and you're moving on when they've hit a criteria. And the other instructor might not be. There are instructors who want to give them a little bit of everything. So we're not a master at everything, but we've touched on everything. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it, because they could be twins, for argument's sake, siblings, cousins. They're 2 different people. They learn at different rates. I would suggest that the biggest problem you've got here is if there's an issue between those siblings. And that needs ironing out. And that's a conversation that you would have with your half of the sibling, in reassuring them that they potentially are not any further behind, just learning at a different rate. And it could be that we've covered more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So quantity over quality.
It could be.
Yeah.
The thing is, you're shooting in the dark a little bit because you're not in that lesson with them. So,
yeah.
And perhaps don't sign up for why. Just is your learner happy in your car with you? Do they learn every lesson? Do they come away with something new? Do they come away with something that's better developed? Are they less supported on things? Because in my mind, that's progress. Maybe consider what you're using to record progress. Are you doing it, or is your learner doing that? What were their expectations from the lesson? How long did they expect to take to learn to drive? Have you asked that question?
Yeah, that's some really good advice. I've had learners where one has still been looking at how we make the car move and stop and slow and go with the clutch and how all that works still after maybe 6 hours of lessons. And I've had other learners who in lesson 1 we've managed to get up to 3rd gear because they've got it, they've just understood, and it's clicked with them. And remember, all these pupils that we get have got all these different backgrounds and all these different this different knowledge base, where one might it's unlikely that they've never been in a car, but you could get a pupil that's never been in a car ever, and you could get one whose dad is Lewis Hamilton and who knows everything. And so it depends on their backgrounds as well. There's so many different things that they could have heard growing up, picked up, seen, listened to, watched, that affects how they take things in as well. So yeah, I think Scott's advice is really good there to Anonymous. If your lesson is going well, if they're learning, if you're happy with what they've learnt and they've got that deep knowledge and understanding, which we know that if they get that deep knowledge and understanding on the car control is going to make it so much easier down the line. They're not going to get into 10 hours when you start to layer up those skills, and then we've got those car control faults creeping back in because that knowledge and understanding wasn't deep enough. Then we can we know that that's better for them. We know that that's setting the foundation. You know, you can't build a pyramid upside down. So I think yeah, I think that's really good advice. And Anonymous, when you are watching this, whether it's now or on Zoom, on YouTube, let me know what you think and get in touch with me. So we've had a couple of comments. One for you, Scott. Nick says, what switched you fully into coaching? That's a great question. You mentioned it was about into year 6 that you kind of brought it and you got on board. What switched you fully into that?
Can I first of all ask you, Nick, why you've asked that question?
He's trying to find his mute, but he's on mute. There he is.
Hi there, Scott. Nice to
Hello,
see you, and nice to see you, Becky. Yeah, I'm just going through a big process at the moment of self-development, enjoying it a lot. Definitely trying to move over from old style instruction through client-centered to coaching, but I now recognise that it's not actually true client-centered. It's really instructing to coaching. So that's really where I'm coming from, and it's been a long haul so far. Really, a lot of it has just been gaining sort of like knowledge and understanding, and now I'm getting down to the practicalities of trying to put it into place.
Okay, so what provoked you to look into it?
Sorry.
What provoked you to look into coaching?
Well, I actually had a week off because I scalded my foot and I couldn't work for a week, and I had an itch that needed scratching. So I spent the week thinking about how I might investigate more, and sort of came up with a bit of a plan to spend a good chunk of time on looking into it. And I'm sort of 7 months into it now.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that, Nick. And so for me to answer your question, it was a bit of a strange one, really. When I was doing my training, I used various different people online as my mentors without actually reaching out to them. And I liked bits and pieces, a bit like being a parent, really. We pick the bits we like and we leave the bits we perhaps don't like. And I kind of did that, and then sort of started to work with trainees, people coming into the industry. And what, obviously I take everything with a pinch of salt with what you hear sometimes. And I thought, I do this so differently. What is that? Why is that? And that's kind of how I started looking into it, because I never really had seen myself as an instructor in the traditional sense of instructing. I didn't do much telling. So I kind of discovered that I was maybe doing a little bit of coaching I was trying to coach. And then I picked up a few books and tried to understand that. And I tried to look at it from outside of the industry and bring it into what I was doing. Does that make sense? Because I didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm bringing sources in from all over the place, really.
I didn't have any contacts really to say, right, can you tell me what coaching means to you?
No. I mean, I started scout. I mean, the start point really was sort of scouring the internet and seeing basically what people were saying, and then looking for people who were sort of like wedded to the idea to try and help me, with their online videos and books and content to try and develop myself.
Good. And then moving on to your question of what switched me fully into coaching was I could see it was working, and I really understood it. One day something just clicked and was like, in a coach in the traditional sense doesn't have to know the subject matter of what they're coaching, because they're coaching a person. And we're in a really fortunate position in my mind that we do know the subject matter, and sometimes that can fog our mind as a coach in the car. Does that make sense?
Because you sort of, you know the subject, so you're coming in as an expert, and as soon as you're coming in as the expert, then you start forming a hierarchical relationship where you are the instructor and the other person's a pupil, and that's the sort of what I went through for quite a lot of years, and realized that there was something else which I sort of saw as being client-centered, but I was putting a sort of a client-centered coach on old style instruction.
Yeah, I can echo
So
that.
it didn't actually really do anything more apart from I just asked a lot more questions.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there.
So then I started to think, well, hang on a second, what's the difference between an instructor and a coach? And I'm sort of now getting down to some of the nitty gritty of looking at the specific skills that a coach would have, as opposed to the traditional skills that an instructor would have.
Absolutely. I mean, coach, to use your the way you've put it there is trying to coach as an instructor, if you like. That sounds a bit odd, but we're asking questions because we know the answer to them. We want to hear. I want you to. I'm going to quiz you on what you should know that I know. Whereas a coach doesn't need to know that. We can be inquisitive. We can ask questions that we don't know the answer to, so we can really dig, find the root cause of problems, whether that's a feeling, a sensation, an experience, a lack in skill, knowledge, and all of this other stuff. And if we're really interested in that stuff, I truly believe now that that person, if I'm inquisitive enough, has all the answers.
Certainly has a lot of the answers. So I'm starting with each person as a sort of like on an individual basis now.
But in my mind, they have all the answers.
As opposed to a system based, and then finding out really not what I know, but what they know, and seeing how I can assist them in developing what they know.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
feel and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of like, well, as I say, I'm on my way down the line, but it still doesn't. It's actually the putting it into practice.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation would be to get yourself in front of somebody that that offers that type of training, coaching, and mentoring. And
that's what. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely the route I've gone. So I'm putting that in place at the moment.
Amazing. Well, I wish you the best of luck with it. And it sounds like you're open to change, open to different ideas, which I think is fantastic, because as driver trainers, we have to be open-minded. You know, we've got so many different types of people and learning styles in front of us, that being a better trainer and developing our skills, we're able to unlock their potential quicker and keeping it safe.
And just final question, within the coach's toolkit, do you see instruction as having a place?
Say that last bit again. Inside the
coaching toolkit, do you see instruction as a tool that has its place?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Because if that's what a learner I've identified as a learning style, and that's what the learner both needs and wants, and it's safe and it's relevant, then why can't I offer that as a tool?
Yeah. No, that's fine. Yes. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's just that I'm afraid I'm a bit black and white sometimes, so I either want one or the other, and it's like a lot of things in life, it's blended. Yeah,
I mean, the danger is fully instructing somebody with a couple of questions. We're giving information, aren't we? We're telling them, and that's great. If you meet that one person that understands that from you telling them, then great. And I'm sure if you told me what to do, I'd understand completely where you're coming from and what you want me to achieve. It's, of course, when we have somebody that doesn't understand that, thinks slightly different, hasn't got the same background and training as I've had, that's where we have the barrier to learning.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for that. That was really interesting.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Thank you, Nick. For anyone here that's new here that doesn't follow Nick and see Nick's contributions to the Empathetic Instructor Training Group, Nick is absolutely on a mission to be even better than he already is. And I love hearing about Nick's CPD that he does. It's fantastic. And you always contribute to these sessions as well, Nick. So thank you for that. It's really, really beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, and for me, lovely. Thank you.
Amazing. So I've just been chatting to a couple of people who have private messaged me. Thank you to those guys that have. And there's a comment in the chats that we're going to come to. Ricky, you've had your hand raised for a while, so over to you, Ricky.
It's just a question about the 40 hours on the pink license. If I sat in the back and watched another instructor, would they be able to sign off for on that ADI part of my 40 hours if I just sit in the back of instructor's car?
Can I come back at that?
So, you certainly can. I couldn't hear that very well. I don't know if we do a power cut again. It broke up a little bit. Yes, if you heard, feel free.
Ricky, so I'm going to point in the direction for that question specifically to be answered by the DVSA. Okay, they're the people that will tell you the nitty-gritty. However, from a PDI development side of things, and if you're paying for that, are you getting value from that?
I won't be paying, so I would be getting valued.
Based on a monetary saving?
Based on the money side, to get the 40 hours done faster, and then get the pink license and still have the 40 hours in-car training, but obviously always be on the pink license. So it's just trying to speed up this pink license.
Yeah, I mean, my advice would be to make sure you're getting training value in those 5 hours. If you feel that from watching somebody that you're getting value from that, great stuff. But how much of that time is actually development for yourself? How much are you going to retain from watching an hour, 2 hour lesson? And what skill are you developing as an instructor within that time? Just things to consider.
I know, thank you.
Thank you, Ricky. I'm really sorry I couldn't hear much of that. Okay, we're going to go to a comment that we had in the group, in the chat, sorry. So, in my first failed part 3 attempt, examiner's feedback was that I should have left my learner alone. We started on quiet routes, and then after 20 minutes, my learner went independent. In the last 10 minutes, my learner made 2 mistakes. Hesitation on roundabouts and braking suddenly without no reason, no place to pull up. So decided to come to the test centre. 4 minutes left when we arrived in the test centre, started to talk about those faults. But because it was a bit of a rush, oh, hang on, it's changed because the comment came out. Let me just scroll back up. So hang on, let me go back to it. Nobody comment a minute because it makes me lose it. Because we said, started to talk about those faults, but because it was a bit of a rush, we was going to be out of time. I said to my learner, we'll discuss it next lesson in detail, and learner agreed. I asked about today's lesson. Learner said he'd improved except those 2 faults. It felt a bit rushing. Examiner's feedback was that I should challenge my learner earlier, not in the last 20 minutes. The route was not challenging, as we stayed on slow roads, so he had chance to deal with things. If you think when we were on the way back and it got busy, that's when the problems started to show. Over to you, Scott.
You don't want to answer that one first?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah. So
I don't want to take over.
So it's the examiner is telling you that you needed to challenge your learner sooner. So it was a bit too easy to start with. The faults started happening towards the end. So that would mean that the lesson, certainly the first beginning of the lesson, wasn't appropriate for the learner. If it's not appropriate, it's not going to work. When it started to go wrong, that's the area that we needed to be in. Maybe not to the fault where we've got lots of things happening. Maybe to the point where we've got something going on that we can really exploit. So when pupils are making lots of faults, something's wrong. Either the area is wrong or the help is wrong. If your pupil's making a couple of faults, they could potentially be linked. Let me just go back to what they were. Hesitation in roundabouts and braking suddenly without any reason. So they could be linked somehow, but you'd only know that by exploring that with your learner. You mentioned that there was no place to pull up as well. For anybody here that's got a part 3 or standards check coming up, just know your area really well. You certainly don't want a route. You want a loopable area where you know where there could potentially be somewhere to pull up and have a chat if things aren't going very well. But yeah, the examiner has said to you, you should have left your learner alone when you started on the quiet route. So when it started really well, leave them alone. Don't help them if it's going well. If it's going well, let's change it. If it's not going well, let's change it. And the last little bit as well, you mentioned that you started to talk about the faults, but realised you were running out of time. So said, actually, we'll talk about that next time, but tell me how today went. Well, the faults were included in today. So the examiner would have preferred you to have gone a bit deeper with those faults and get the knowledge and understanding out of the learner, get those light bulb moments, have that conversation. The examiner would have really loved to have heard that, and you go over a minute or two to hear that conversation and to get that feedback from your learner. Scott?
First of all, yes, I can analyze what you've written there, but what's your question? Or did you want me to analyze that?
Just from iPhone. So iPhone, do you want to unmute, or do you want to comment again, just if you've got a specific question about that? I don't know if you kind of just wanted us to chat about that, about what your examiner's feedback was.
I'm happy to do either. I just don't want to, you know, if there's a specific thought or question you wanted answering on.
Well, why don't you start just talking about it? We'll see if iPhone unmutes or pops anything. I've asked you to unmute iPhone. I feel awful for calling you iPhone, but that's all it says. I've asked you to unmute.
Let me know if something pops up. I'll yeah. I mean, if you wanted my feedback as a trainer, and you were working with me, I'd probably say the issue started with the lesson planning, because the examiner obviously comes in partway through your lesson. You know, the setup and the plan of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it and what stage they're at and the exercises that you can do within there would have already been sort of chatted about and talked about. And obviously 9 times out of 10, you're going to know your learner previous to the day of your test, unless you're really unfortunate like me and end up having to take somebody to a standards check that you've never met before. So, you know, what did that look like? What did that sound like? What was the plan? What were they doing previously? And I'm guessing here because I don't know this information, but was it a pre-planned route before the test, or was that agreed on the day? Because it sounds like the route back was more challenging, but what was more challenging about it? Because there we've identified something that needs further development and further exploring. And maybe we could ask ourselves, did I already know that about this learner, or was this new? Yeah. Again, back to the planning of the lesson, is if you've incorporated roundabouts and this person, that wasn't part of the lesson theme, the skill that you were developing, but we've gone on a roundabout and you've incorporated that into your training area and route, I guess I'd ask myself the question, did I consider that in a test environment that my learner may regress, not progress? So if there's an issue at this roundabout, where would I pull over and stop? And possibly your training route might have been too long. Yeah. So I'd perhaps consider the goals that were set, the training area and the training route, if it was me. And in terms of the timing and the feedback from the examiner, he's mentioned that, you know, things sort of started happening in the last 20 minutes. They're the bits he was interested in, because he's not there to see how well your learner drives. Sorry, I'm saying he, it could be a female examiner, apologies. They're there to see your art, your craft. They want to see the magician in action. They want to see what hats you, bunnies and stuff you pull out of your hat. How do you fix things? Yeah. When do you identify it? How quickly did you recognize that actually this is really easy for them? Let's challenge them. Yeah. Back to the faults that happened. Again, I think it's in the planning somewhere. But there's a number of reasons that somebody has a fault. That could be lacking in knowledge, lacking in skill, experience, and the support. So have a look at those 4 things and reflect back on the lesson that you delivered and ask yourself, which one of those could I have looked into a little bit more detail?
Amazing. Thank you.
And also just remember that the person that you think you're taking into your test with you potentially isn't going to be the same person today.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I want you to be a doctor, a detective. You go into the doctor's surgery. I don't think you can anymore, but when you used to be able to, and you go in and you go, my knee really hurts. They're probably not going to start looking at your back and your toes. They're gonna look at your knee and let's investigate that. Yeah.
That's a really good way of putting it. I spoke about that the other night on a workshop that I did, and somebody said to me, how do I know who to take, who's the best pupil to take? I said, it's just someone that you learn. And I said, whoever you think you're taking, you won't end up taking as well. And I spoke to a PDI, what day are we today? Wednesday, yesterday, and must have been 5-10 minutes before their part 3 was due to start. So they'd picked pupil up, driven to the test centre, had a bit of a drive. 5-10 minutes before their part 3 was due to start, sent me a message saying, my pupil's forgotten how to drive. I don't know what I'm going to do. And because they weren't quite ready for that happening and pupil being nervous, I'm at the test centre, this is weird, I'm going to be here in a couple of months for my test, and my instructor's now acting weird. They don't usually ask me these things, and your pupil's going to be weird. It's going to go wrong if you're showing up for like a performance. Whereas kind of going back to yours and Nick's conversation earlier, and you and Paul earlier, Paul's sent me a message saying he had to leave, but he'll catch up the rest on YouTube. If you're kind of doing it every lesson, it's when you get your part 3 or standards check, it's no biggie. If you're there for your learner right there and then in that moment, and it's appropriate for them, you keep them safe, then it's going to work. Simple. Has anybody else got anything else that they would like to talk about, add, mention, discuss? Would anybody like to unmute and tell us about their day or their week at all? Because we've nearly done an hour. While we wait for anybody to maybe let us know they want to chat, how has your first Ask Becky been, Scott?
Yeah, some great questions. The people I've spoken to are open to new ideas. That's amazing. And if I don't know how many people we've got in here, I can't see, but if one person takes something away from this and it clicks, then amazing, and share that with others. It's another tool in your toolbox. I think it's great. Yeah,
absolutely. And if anybody here wanted to get in touch with you, Scott is a group expert on the Empathetic Instructor Training Group. For anybody that does need to get in touch with him, you could find him there. But is there any other way that anybody could get in touch with you, or is Facebook the best way?
I think it's ironic that I'm an expert on Facebook and I have no idea what I'm doing on there.
Do you know how many times, for the guys that have been here since day one, there's a few of you on, how many times I've had to ask this lot about technology and how I do things, because I'm awful with it. So yeah, I'm definitely not an expert on technology. iPhone, you have now commented, can I explain my question which I asked before? Yes, please do. Unmute or pop it in the chat, whichever works for you. We would love you to explain it.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Hello, Becky and Scott. I really appreciate that you guys giving me your time, and I appreciate always trying to catch your Zoom classes. So you're doing amazing work. Thank you so much for that. I asked her questions before, but I didn't know that how to unmute myself. So I'm a like old school type guy. So the questions that I asked you before my part 3, what happened? I started from the quiet road, which is we just practice about 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning, and then we start to merge to the busy road, and from there. My learner made a serious fault, which I intervened like physically, and then I pulled him over and explained him what happened. We did all the analysis and everything, and after that, he said that he want to go independently. The topic was mirrors and anticipations, awareness, and junctions. So on the way, when I checked the time, there was 20 minutes left, and we was on the main road on the way. We merged to the more busiest, like the high street, which is in Shirley, Birmingham. We reached to the roundabout. My learner was waiting, hesitation. And then I said, okay, I tried to guide him like, okay, that's the safe place you need to go. So he moved there. And then we, on the way back on the test center, he just suddenly stopped because the lady was on the pavement, and he stopped. He said that maybe he was thinking that maybe the lady was coming on the road. So it was just that hesitation. So suddenly stopped. We went to the test center, about 4 to 5 minutes left, and we discussed that the faults which he did, not completely deep, but we did the analysis and all thing. And then I said, okay, I checked the time. There was 2 minutes left then. And then I was a bit rushing and nervous, a lot sweating all over the place. I said that, okay, we're going to discuss this in the next lesson in detail. So what do you think about today's lesson? Have you improved anything? Like we did the scaling. He said, yes, he did improve. About the mirrors, anticipations, awareness, he did improved. But quickly, we end up the lesson. The examiner feedback was I should left alone earlier my learner. I should have left him independently earlier, and I should have challenged him more in the busiest route, which I did in the last 20 minutes, but he said that you should him like in the beginning, where you was coming back to the test center. That's why the mistakes started to showing up, the problems and he said that in the beginning, it means he was improving in the mirrors, so I should have left him alone, and it's kind of like a bit over instructing things. This is what he said.
Yeah.
Okay. Go on, Scott.
There's quite a lot to unpack there. Thanks for running us through that. It's really hard for us to give what the right thing would have been to do, because, well, I wasn't there. And you'll remember the bits that your brain remembers, and our opinions differ from what the examiner was seeing from the back. So I would run through perhaps your skills and maybe the marking sheet, and did it make sense? Did you identify the learner's goals and needs? Because if you did, you'd have identified whether they needed help or not. And let's say they did need some help with the mirrors. That's what you've identified. And at the moment that you felt that this person needed less support, did you enable that? Show me. Brilliant. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. I think there may be a case here of, am I showcasing my learner's ability to drive, or am I showcasing my ability to coach, mentor, and instruct? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah.
Did you want me to elaborate on anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you so much for that, Scott, and Becky. Once again, see you. I'm joining again on 19th of March, Becky, in the Zoom class. We already registered. So thank you so much, guys, for the time which you guys given me. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. If you wanted to dig into that a little bit more detail, we could see the marking sheet there, and it may just be sort of understanding and learning perhaps through the eyes of the examiner in a little bit more detail. It might help you to actually say, okay, here's here's what you want, and that's what I've got.
Amazing. Thank you so much, iPhone. I'm sorry, I'm still going to say iPhone because that's what it says. So we've reached 7:30. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this hour. You can reach both of us in the Empathetic Instructor Training Group. If you've got any questions, any worries, any concerns about anything test related, lesson related, pop it in the group. You will be met by thousands. We are one person off of 3,000 in that group, which is pretty good. You will be met by of people who can help you, and if you need any extra help, just message me and Scott. I hope you have a really lovely Wednesday evening, and I will see you guys back here in 2 weeks for another Ask Becky special. Lee Sperry is coming back for round 4 of Ask Becky and Lee in 2 weeks, so we will see you all then. Thank you guys, and thank you so much, Scott, for joining me.
Bye bye. Thank you.